as you saw outside, we have new trailers that we're going to be today sending off down to East St. Louis. We have a branch from LDRT in East St. Louis. We have another branch that's opened in Marion. So what started in 2006 with us deploying in the city of Springfield and to the east side of Springfield, as Doris remembers very vividly, because her and I talked 500 times that day. When two F2 tornadoes came through the city of Springfield, we identified when these things take place, there is not a capacity for a municipality to go on a private property. So what happens is they clear the roads, they do the medical checks to make sure everybody's okay, and everything else on your home is your issue. So if you have a 100-foot tree through the middle of your house, the next morning it will still be there. Your only other option is trying to get predatory contractors who will come in at that time who absolutely charge exponentially more because it's a disaster and they're more needed at that time. So we found that we fill a niche between our cooperation with the operating engineers and the laborers, that this is what we do for a living. So rigging and chainsaws and heavy construction and demolition and getting people out of their homes and getting the streets clean so the EMTs and first responders can get onto the property in the first place. We've had 13 deployments, 8 tornadoes. The video you see today is unfortunately video from Sherman, our recent deployment. The reason that we came here today also and put out the equipment is because one of the things we found is our last 3 deployments, almost actually our last 4 deployments, were all in the middle of the night. So we just spent another $15,000 for the light plants out there. So 4 tornadoes in a row, all in the middle of the night. So you take a disaster, you take an area that is absolutely destroyed, and you exponentially increase the risk because of the fact that of all of the damage, the gas lines, the power lines, and you make it at midnight. So with the donations that we've received just this year, LDRT has raised $60,000 that have allowed us to get the trailers that you see outside, the light plants, and increase what we can do for the community. We're very proud to be here today. We're very proud of all the individuals who are here. I want to talk about Jack Campbell, the sheriff of Salmon County. Jack and I, every time there is a disaster, Jack and I are on the phone. Every time there's bad weather, Jack and I are on the phone. The year before, and it means so much to me, the year before, Jack and I were having a conversation about a red cell that popped up in Salmon County and then popped up in Springfield just on the north end. We lost some cars to floods. I was on the phone with Jack. Jack said, we've got some damage. There's some houses damaged on the north side of Springfield. We mobilized an elite team, moved there. I didn't know it was going to be my daughter's home. So my daughter's home was destroyed. And we were there in conjunction with Salmon County. We've been on 13 disasters. I never know I go to my own families. And what takes place and what you'll see is as the municipalities clear the roads, those trees are going to stay there. So if it isn't for the cooperation of the operating engineers and Liuna, the next day you still have a damaged home, a 100-foot tree through the middle of your house, and you can't begin to heal from such a traumatic experience. What we specialize is we come in, we clear the roads, see the EMTs and the first responders can get in, we get the tree off of your home. Then we get that tree chopped up and removed. So the next morning you can start to have forward progress towards getting past the terrible thing that took place. We're very proud of the cooperation with the operating engineers. They've been there since the first time in 2006. This is Brett Skaggs. Brett, you're supposed to be up here, come on up. Yeah, I saw what you were doing. You were doing that on purpose.
Yay, Brett!
So, what we're going to do today, there's so many individuals here that are special to us. I do want to say Silverline Trailers, when we went and bought these trailers with the money that the Vallow family donated, they took $2,000, not because we asked them to, they took $2,000 off each one of those trailers after we had already agreed to buy the 3 of them. They did that on their own because they went to LDRT's website, they looked at what our members do, the men and women, and they did that. And I want to tell you how much that meant to us and how much money you saved us, so we can put that money towards our next response. And I want to tell you how much that means that you did that for us. Thank you so much. So I want to do one thing before I let the special people that we have here to talk today, is I want to tell you that all of the men and women that go on these disasters, they're not paid. Actually, they lose money. So we call these men and women the night before or at the time of the storm, and they leave their job and they go with us. They have done that to as far as Rockton, Illinois, when they had the Tool fire. IEMA dispatched us to Rockton. They've done it to McLean County when we went up there when they had a flood event. They've done it in Sherman when we had a flood event. They've done it in Sherman Tornado, Marissa, Illinois. We've been all over, and these men and women lose money. So you're talking about people that are paid weekly and make their living off of that check on Friday. See, the difference is I'm paid. So I'm on the disaster and I'm paid. But all of the men and women around me are not. They're actually losing money. And we never ask the municipality to recoup those funds. So one of the things that we do that is special to us is we never interfere in the money that the federal government gives to that community for disaster relief. So you never have to figure us into what you have to spend when you get that money. We stay out of that. We raise all of the money for this very special 501c3. So we never want to be a hindrance to a community. We only want to help. If we're going to build all the roads, which we do, we build all the buildings, we build all the schools, what would we be if we weren't there when you're needed the most? And that's why we do what we do, and that's why the men and women of our organization do that. So today, we've got the mayor of Springfield, Misty Buscher. We've got Senator Doris Turner, we have Frank Valla, we have Trevor Cladfelter, Brett Skaggs, and Jack Campbell. And we're going to start off with Mr. Valla to talk about the amazing donation that he did to allow us to be here today. You're up, Frank.
Thank you, Brad. People, I don't think most people understand when you see on the news that there's a disaster. You see the trees down, you see the electrical lines and everything. And the next morning when you see the news, you see the power companies in there putting the lines back up and rescue people. How the hell did they get in there? For years, I never understood, and Brad and I go back many years and worked on a lot of projects, and, along with Aaron and along with Brad. And I just realized that there's a need. They already recognized the need. We decided that when Brad and I were talking, that large trailer, the first one you see out there, their start trailer, that it was big, it could carry a lot of the equipment, but it couldn't get into the disaster sites as easy as they would like to see the equipment. So Brad came to me and asked me if I would help him raise money to buy a trailer. And as I had got more involved with Brad, I said, Brad, why didn't the Valla family just go ahead and pay for them, and that way we don't use up favors for other things. This is another part of the do good that people don't realize are being done in this area. And I commend Brad. I commend Melissa for letting Brad out at 4 in the morning and not seeing him for 2 and 3 days. I commend all of the members of the union that spend their time and their money to do this. I mean, this is one time, and I hope I don't get mad with all these elected officials sitting up here with me. This is time where we didn't need government involved. The decisions were made and the repairs were started, and people saw a light of recovery. Trevor will tell you some tremendous stories that he's still trying to get his clean up. But when people talk about unions, you get some people that have a bad taste or a bad comment. Oh, the union says, but this isn't union. This is organized labor. This is a combination of everybody and their membership, and they're doing it for the good of the people, not for benefits, not for anything else. They don't ask a question. They go out and do the work. And I'm so proud that Brad let me be involved in this. We need to do more and more things for this community. I'll stay out of my political realm and not mention some things that have gone in the past, but we have a new future. We have a great opportunity with this combination, with the international being involved. This is the type of things that we need to do. We don't need to be sitting around waiting for surveys and studies and decisions on how do we get something done. This saves people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you. What Frank didn't tell you is that when we went to him and said that we were going to try and raise this money, Frank said, don't ask other people for money. Here's $50,000. A $50,000 check out of the Vala family's personal account. Not a PAC fund, not a corporate fund, out of their personal account. And it is going to save lives. It is. So the next individual we have to talk is very special. We were on the phone that night when the tornado hit. We were in our basement with my wife and my grandkids. We live in Sherman. The tornado missed our house by a mile and a half. When we came out, the OEM director started having chats across the lines. Jack and I talked. Jack and told me that Sherman had been hit. I'm in Sherman. I'm looking out the large window in the back, wondering what happened. Jack informed us. I got a hold of Trevor, and this is not Trevor and I's first time of dealing with this. And to Trevor's credit and to Jack's credit, because when we got there, Jack was on the ground. First face I saw was Jack Campbell. This only works if that type of cooperation is there. When we arrived in Williamsville, the first thing that's going to happen is they think you're a looter. So we had a caravan and 100 people going to Williamsville, and we got stopped by state police holding ARs because they didn't know who we were. The cooperation with your governmental bodies allow us to do that, and because of that relationship, it saves time, so hopefully we can maybe save somebody's life. So the mayor of Sherman, Trevor Gladfelder.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for Brad. Thank you for allowing me to be here. So I want to set the tone here in terms of what happened, what led up to that day, how we got through it, and then what the laborers disaster response team has meant to the village of Sherman, and how unbelievably sincere we are about being so thankful to this group of individuals. So I just want to lay out really fast, as fast as I can, a chronology of how the events took place, and then get us to where I can literally express what Labor's Disaster Response Team means to the village of Sherman. So on March 29th and March 30th, our Sherman Emergency Management Agency had been monitoring the National Weather Service weather reports and noted to its partners, our police, our fire, our emergency management volunteers, and our amateur radio, village administrator, the potential for severe weather. So then March 30th rolls along. Sherman Emergency Management sends a recommendation to all of our departments to consider having standby crews ready should an event occur. We put out on social media to try and warn and inform our public, as was the National Weather Service and a lot of other media outlets, about the potential for severe extreme weather that could be hitting the Midwest at that point in time. So we'd like to think that by taking those proactive measures, it led to the fact that we did not have any deaths or injuries, so to speak, regarding the F2 tornado that hit the village of Sherman. So that brings us to Friday, March 31st, when the tornado actually did descend upon Sherman and the area. So the National Weather Service had assigned a level 3 enhanced risk, but was later raised to a level 4 moderate risk of severe weather for the Sherman area. At 3 p.m., Sherman Emergency Management activated its Emergency Operations Center. Due to the significant weather event being tracked by the National Weather Service, the village was under a tornado watch during this time. Trained staff monitored weather conditions and coordinated the police department. Police personnel were detailed to perform weather spotter functions. Around 6 p.m., our officers began reporting heavy rain, strong winds, and limited visibility. An officer on stationary patrol at Andrew Road and State Route 124, and I remember this vividly, hearing it that night from our chief and my deputy chief. It was my deputy chief of police. He literally felt his vehicle raise up in the air from the strong high winds. So you have these events taking place. About 6:11, prior to that, we set off the early warning system, the tornado sirens. And about 6:11 is when we had the tornado touch down and rip through our northernmost subdivision, which is referred to as Britton Place, North and South Britton Place. So our police officers discovered heavy damage in the Britton Place subdivision. The subdivision contained 28 homes located on the north end of the village of Sherman. Law enforcement and fire service personnel arrived on the scene. They started the assessment and rescue procedures. One officer was able to immediately rescue an individual, and by happenstance, this individual was house sitting at a house that was one of the houses that was pretty much completely erased. It had collapsed and fallen in. She's in there holding a dog and sitting on the couch with debris, walls, roof, everything literally on top of her. So they made their way to the scene. Officer Villar, Joe Villar, who is one heck of an officer, he rescues this individual from this house. But at the same time that all of this stuff is happening and there's complete chaos, you've got this disaster site, you have everything from houses that are zeroed out to significant damage to moderate damage to some damage, just sitting in this area. So you can imagine what the scene is like at that point in time. I'm going to deviate from these notes. I had my emergency management agency guy write this up, so some of these notes, so it's kind of bureaucratic, Frank. So you have all this stuff taking place. You have this house that's collapsed. You have this small town, village of Sherman. We have a public works crew of 3 full-timers and about 10 retired police and fire guys that serve in a permanent part-time role. You have our police department, it's about 14 officers, our administrative staff who isn't anything more than a one-man show, and that's Mike Stratton. And then you have our fire department, one of the most professional fire departments you'll ever work with or see, volunteer fire departments, but they're as professional as it gets. So they're all responding onto this scene. Sangamon County Sheriff's Office is responding onto this scene. State police are responding to this scene. We don't know what is actually happened or taken place because of the extent of the damage and the time of night, where nightfall is kind of starting to descend upon the area. So that tornado was on the ground for, I believe, a total of 8 minutes. It was from 6:12 to 6:20. It traveled 5.5 miles. It was 400 yards long, and hit other areas around the village of Sherman. So myself, in terms of trying to, coordinate with our police chief, the department, and everything else that's taking place with trying to establish a command center and getting the EOC up and running, I was on the phone literally with our EOC when the event took place. And I got to tell you this because when our guys that were weather spotting spotted this tornado, it's a feeling that you can't understand. And when I could feel it through the phone just in terms of communicating with them. So you just hear the all hands on deck type of mentality that immediately takes place. With that being said, and everybody responding, and then myself trying to communicate with our emergency management director and the chief of police to get an assessment of exactly what was happening at that time, because I wasn't right on scene, they're trying to report back to me. What also simultaneously happened, and this is so important, this is huge, this is enormous, this is what sets the standard for why the Labor's Disaster Response Team is second to none, is so vitally important to this community, to these communities, to this state, because they don't just serve Sangamon County, they serve, and then Brad and I talked about their district boundaries, essentially where the teams form and go. But for the Village of Sherman, as soon as our police department was responding, and I'm talking to my chief of police and the emergency management director, I can tell you literally, almost simultaneously, literally, and I'm using all these words to try and make you understand this, I received a phone call from Director Shivey, who heads up the Laborers Disaster Response Team. Immediately, he was offering assistance and help to the Village of Sherman. I've got 80 guys. We're here. We're amassed. We're waiting. Where do you need us? Where do you want us? Now, knowing what the Laborers Disaster Response Team can do, because in 2008, shortly after getting elected, Sherman experienced a 100 and 500-year storm event. We had massive flooding. We had culverts that were blown out. We had cars underwater. We had lots of other flood-type disaster events that had taken place in the early morning hours, like Brad had said, of the night. So back in 2008, they come out and they save Sherman, literally. I'm a new mayor. I'm in office a year and a half. It's still, you're trying to, Misty, you know what it's like when you first get in and everything is just coming at you like a fire, like a fire hose. And so you're trying to figure this stuff out. You're in office for barely a year, and then you have this major natural event happen. But what did happen is the Laborers Disaster Response Team back then stepped up. They were out there with a crew of individuals. They were replacing culverts. We had replacing roads, all kinds of various different things that had taken place super fast, for where bureaucratic stuff would have actually slowed it down. And so that was another, aspect of why it is so good that these guys come in and gals come in to save a town. And you don't have to wait for the delays and all the various different things along those lines. So knowing what had happened in 2008 with the events in Sherman, I get this call simultaneously from Mr. Shivey saying, we're ready, we're here for you, let's go. And I know Brad, and I've known Brad for a very long time, and I know how much of a leader he is, how he can motivate individuals, and how motivated he is. So he's sitting, waiting, ready to go. I say, let me call you right back. I call my chief of police, and I call the emergency management director. I'm like, I have 80 guys, the Laborers Disaster Response Team, Brad Shivey, Brett Skaggs, sorry, Brett. Where you at? There you are. Brett's waiting there too, with the operating engineers and the resources that they have and the equipment that they use in order to make this whole operation happen. So I tell the chief, we've got these guys, they're ready to go. And he's like, I don't know where we're going to put them. It was like, this is literally what I said to him, and I told Brad this that night. I was like, I found a place for you. We're going to stage you just north of where the HSHS facility is. It's the Route 66 Wayside Park there, right across from Walgreens. I said, head there. I'll have chief or somebody meet you there. On the back end, I'm communicating to the emergency management and the EOC. We do not want to lose these guys to go somewhere else. Now, I have to tell you, like that night, we don't know where the other damage is. There's reports of this tornado and how far it ripped through the Midwest. What I don't want as mayor of the Village of Sherman, knowing how vitally important that they are to the cleanup, to the rescue, them going and getting pulled off because we're not ready for them. So we had to tell the fire chief, we had to tell the police chief, and we had to, which they wasn't too hard, but it was trying to, let's not lose these guys. We cannot lose them to some other area that was hit. Get them in there as soon as possible. But what we had to do to make it safe for these individuals to go in, who work around stuff like this all the time, was get the gas lines shut off, to get the electric lines, killed off, because the scene was very unsafe. And if you've seen some of these photos that are playing in these videos, look at the mass of destruction that's there. You had large electrical towers fall over into houses. So it's not a scene that's safe. But with Brad's motivation, I tried to temper that and say, you're going in as soon as we can humanly possible get you in there. Those guys went in there and made short work of the biggest work that you could ever think of. I saw a news report a little bit later, a couple weeks after, when the East Coast got hit by some tornadoes, and the reporter is standing in front of, and I said this to Brad, they're standing in front of these houses, this destruction that had happened, and there are still trees down, there's still trees on top of roofs, there's still trees into houses, on cars, and all these various different things. What you don't see from the disaster the next day in the village of Sherman was there were no trees still sitting on houses. There were no trees on cars. There were no trees anywhere. So these guys worked through the entire night. I talked to Brad nonstop throughout the entire night. The communication was unbelievable. And these individuals were in and out of there. And it took hours, and it took hours, and it took hours. But it would have taken our public works crews. We'd still be working on it today if they hadn't come out and assisted the village of Sherman with this cleanup. So the Labor's Disaster Response Team and this donation that Mr. Vala has made and Mike has made and all the other individuals that are stepping up to fund the resources that are heavily needed. That night we needed lights, right? Brad said to me, you know, can you get lights? Can you get some lights? Fire department had some lights, but not enough. These guys need work, you know, guys and gals, sorry. These guys and gals need the lights. They need the various different ATV, components to make all of this stuff happen. But in the village of Sherman, who's the most thankful for these guys? I can sit here and tell you that I am. I can tell you that our staff is. I can tell you the police department has nothing but the greatest accolades to say about the chain of command and the professionalism that they displayed that evening and the cooperation of working with them. I can say it on behalf of the fire department. I can say it on behalf of, our administration, our public works department. But what I really want to say is that those residents, the 28 homes, the people in that area, because we also implemented another outreach type thing. We called every single house and we said, hey, what's the extent of your damage? What do you need? Just trying to communicate with them. The amount of accolades, the amount of appreciation, thankfulness, the sincerity in their voices for what the village government had done for them was great, but it was second to none to the accolades and the compliments that you had heard and that what they had witnessed by seeing the Labor's Disaster Response Team come in and make light of some of the biggest work that you could ever imagine. I mean, it's still a disaster area. There's still significant damage in that area. There's bikes and trees. There's all kinds of various different things. But like I said, what there isn't is the big, massive destruction. All of those trees were removed. We found a staging location. We put them out on the Business 55, Sherman Boulevard. State of Illinois stepped up. The county stepped up. Everybody had stepped up and pulled their weight and did their part. I got calls from other mayors immediately that evening trying to offer resources. What do you need? We're there. Do you need crews? Do you need this? Various different things. But like I said, I can't say enough and give enough thanks to the Labor's Disaster Response Team for what they did for the village of Sherman on March 31st, 2023, but also 2008, the year of 2008 when they came out and helped us there. What I would also like to say is I'm so happy that these resources are there. I'm so thankful for Mr. Vala. I'm so thankful for the Labor's Disaster Response Team and everybody that works with them and all the resources that they're amassing, and it's growing and growing, and that's what it's going to take. And what I would end with, this is just to tell you, this is like, I don't want to use those resources in the future. We don't need another event. But if there is another event, I know that simultaneously my phone will be ringing as fast as we're responding to that event, and it'll be Brad Scheibe calling saying, hey, I've got 80 guys and gals, I've got the operators, Brett Skaggs' crews ready to go. Where do you need us? We're there for you. It's his hometown as well. He's a Village of Sherman resident, my constituent, my friend. So with all of that, that's what the Labor's Disaster Response Team means to us, and that's why we're so thankful, and I'm so thankful to be able to get up here and actually express our sincere thanks and gratitude for everything that they did. So thank you, everybody.
So one thing that came up today that the sheriff had told us, as you know, you can see the vehicles out there. That's basically all of our equipment for LDRT. And we store it on this property. Sheriff, you want to tell them the news you gave me today?
Sure.
If you could.
So as everybody knows, Sangamon County bought the State General Register building, the South Complex now for Sangamon County. During the planning stages, working with engineers, working with the county board, trying to decide spacing, how much we're going to need for our vehicles, Brad and I had talked about storing his trailer. I can't remember how much dollar amount of equipment is in that trailer out there, but it sits out here exposed in the parking lot. So during these planning stages, we actually planned for and allowed room for storing his trailer at the new South Complex that we're going to move into, along with our tactical vehicles and our command posts. So again, these things usually go hand in hand. If we're getting out the command posts, I know Brad and his crew is going to be needed. So we're happy to provide that housing to ensure security, to ensure we don't have to pay to replace it if something's stolen. And again, very happy to do our part to help out the LDRT.
So the next individual, I can't tell you how happy I am to be able to say that we welcome the new mayor of Springfield, Misty Buscher.
Thank you very much. First thing I want to do is thank Mike and Frank for their donation to this great, great cause. So thank you for what you've done. We all do not know when we will need the LDRT team in our community. So every community needs to respect and appreciate what they do, because they do not discriminate on what community they go to. If they are needed, the working men and women of the laborers 477 and the operating engineers 965 show up. And as Brad said, they're not getting paid to be there. So it's an honor as a mayor today. I am starting my 3rd week in office to give my first proclamation. This proclamation from the City of Springfield says, whereas the Laborers Disaster Response Team, LDRT, has always taken immediate action to assist disaster victims in our community, including the tornado that impacted Sangamon County in March of 2023. And whereas the Laborers Disaster Response Team has become an essential part of our community's disaster response by safely and efficiently moving trees and other debris from roadways and property so that first responders, utility companies, and other necessary personnel can enter a disaster area. And whereas the City of Springfield truly appreciates the efforts of our Laborers Disaster Response Team and its General Executive Board, who have been the first responders on the scene to improve the health and wellness of our community. And whereas we also want to say thank you to our community partners for recognizing the importance of these efforts, because one entity cannot do it alone. We appreciate your time and energy for creating resources and aid in the disaster areas while supplying the necessary equipment to make our community a better place. That's you, Mike and Frank. Now, therefore, I, Misty Buscher, Mayor of the City of Springfield, Illinois, together with the entire Springfield City Council, do hereby proclaim that today, Monday, May 22nd, 2023, shall now be Laborers Disaster Response Team Day. You have your own day today. And a shout out to your community, Trevor. I will tell you that when I called Brad, when they were getting deployed, I said, if you guys need food, water, anything, we will be there. And you know what he said? He said, the community of Sherman fed us so well. We had hot meals, we had drinks, we needed nothing. So shout out to your community.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. It's awesome. It's amazing. So because of the fact that we need light plants in the new trailers to expand our capability, we went on a fundraising request tour, and Frank Kaczynski's here from the AGC. That is an organization that we deal with in our mundane lives, not our first responder lives. And it's a business relationship between management and the trades. And we talk to Frank in a business capacity daily. Frank, of his own, went to his board and delivered here to this local without our knowledge. He walked in and handed over a $3,000 check, which is one of those light plants. So he did that. We didn't ask him to do it. He saw what had happened, he saw what the trades had done, and I want to tell you, we haven't had a chance to tell you thank you because I haven't seen you since then, but it was so amazing for you to do that day and help us. And when those lights are out on there, I'm going to call you and show you the difference that it makes, because it makes a huge difference when these men and women are trying to work and it's pitch black because the power's out. And nobody ever realizes that. And you don't realize that. And even OEM directors, their background is in it, but if you've not been in those tornadoes, you don't know what it is. And thank you so much for what you did. Frank and J&J Gaming both came in with checks that allowed us to get those light plants. And with Frank, the trailers were a real capability and something we could do. And so with that, what an honor it is for Senator Turner to be here, and I'll tell you why it's an honor. Not because of her position, not that she's a senator, but because of the fact that I remember being on the phone with her when this started in 2006. Middle of the night, 2 F2 tornadoes. We called Doris. I said, we're coming to the east side. Where's the damage? Can you help? What had happened is we had been directed to the west side of Springfield. Storm Stories covered, they rode with me. I didn't even know what Storm Stories was at the time. Storm Stories with Jim Cantone, they were there, film crew said, can I go with you? They were with us, the whole disaster response, and it played nationwide on TV for years. I think it still plays every once in a while. We were sent to the west side of Springfield where there was a couple trees down. On the east side of Springfield, there were churches that were gone. There were houses that were gone. People were trapped. The fire department couldn't even get down the roads because of the trees. Doris helped coordinate that, told us there's damage here. We went there, and in the video of Storm Stories, you see, I go, let's go to the east side, and off we go with a giant caravan. That's because of the fact that she knew what we were doing, and she brought us to her community to help, which has been a theme of the previous speakers. Trevor knows what we do. The sheriff knows what the men and women do. And so, without further ado, Senator Turner, thank you so much.
Good morning. This is really a very emotional day for me because, as Brad said, this whole laborers disaster relief team started making a pathway in my neighborhood when nobody felt that it was important to go to the east side of Springfield where all of the disaster was happening. And what he didn't say is that when he came, they were literally 2 blocks east of my house where they were clearing a path not only for my neighbors, but for some of my lifelong friends that I didn't know if they were alive, dead, could get out of their houses. I didn't know what was happening because we couldn't get over there. So when the Laborers Disaster Relief Team came to my neighborhood, they cleared that path so we would be, number one, be able to know what was happening, and then provide a pathway for them to be able to get out of their homes. The other thing that he did on that day is he cleared a pathway so that I could get to my mother to find out what was happening with her, because the way that tornado came, it came from like 2 blocks east of me and then went southwest, and made a pathway directly to my mother's house. And I got in my car and I tried to go there, but I couldn't because everything was just blocked off. And I felt I just didn't know what to do. So the only thing I could do was just go back home and try to see, wait. And so I will forever be grateful for what you did that day to provide that relief for my friends, for my neighbors, and allow me to get to my mother. I will always remember that. When things happen, we wake up and now we have this great Laborers Disaster Relief Team, but that all started with a vision and with a leader. And that's where the vision is and the leadership that brought all of this together. And then you add on him reaching out to Brett Skaggs and the operating engineers and bringing them along and building that partnership. But none of this happens unless you have the resources to make it happen. And you know, I have to say that Frank and Linda Valla do so much for this community. Over the years have done so much for this community. And it doesn't get talked about because they never talked about it. They just did it because they had the resources to do it and they wanted to give back. And so I thank you for the extra trailers that are out there, because that allows the vision, the partnership, and the resources to come together to do for all of these other communities what Brad did for me and my family all those years ago. So thank you very, very much. I do have a recognition for the aid that the Labor's Disaster Response Team offered to Sherman, because that was the latest in their response. Not the first, not the second, not the third or the fourth or the fifth, but the latest. And I did, and I will leave this with you, but I did prepare a Senate proclamation. However, unlike Misty, there is bureaucracy that goes along with that. And things have to get read into the record and voted on. And because we did not finish our work when we were supposed to finish our work, that still has to happen. So hopefully that will happen Wednesday, and I will definitely personally deliver that to you.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, but as I take my seat, I do just want to say again, thank you for the vision, for the leadership, for the partnership, and for the resources that makes all of this happen. Thank you.
So that's what we had planned for today. Hopefully that gives you some information. If there's any questions, hopefully we can answer them if anybody's here.
Right, could you just get the mic for a minute and get a couple of things?
Absolutely.
Could you just...
So with the donations that came in and allowed us to branch out, so Labor's Disaster Response Team has been centered in Sangamon County. Because of the capabilities of the men and women of this organization, IEMA and other municipalities have been using us as far as the Wisconsin border to Marissa, which is towards St. Louis. And now we have cooperation and MOU agreements all the way from Carbondale to McLean County. So what it has done is it allowed us to buy trailers, do training, and have teams, satellite teams, that can deploy at a moment's notice while we get the majority of the team to travel to that area. It's so important to have the infrastructure, because like Trevor said, we have to spend all the time on the telephone with Jack and Trevor and I, and then my team leaders get the teams together. That's tough to do for me to know every OEM manager in every county and every mayor in every county. So those local leaders of LDRT can get that groundwork and the infrastructure that is going to change lives. So these donations have allowed to buy those trailers. And the reason is, Jim, is if you see the large trailer we have out there, when you can't take that into a disaster zone. So what happens is that becomes our command center, and then we work between that command center and the incident commander. Like they'll have the incident command vehicle, either the county or municipality. So that'll allow us to stage up. The capabilities this gives us is immense. So instead of waiting for us to get to Marissa, Illinois, which is 2 hours away, we can have a local team deploy and prepare that for us. They're already purchased. All of the equipment's already there. They're storing it on their own. So with donations and our 501c3 that has been established from the Labor's International Union North America, we had bought all that equipment. So they all have already the saws and all the PPE, personal protection, so the chaps and all things. One of the things we do also, a lot of people don't know, is everybody thinks they know how to use a chainsaw, even though they don't. And we actually pay one of the top chainsaw instructors in the country to fly in from California. He teaches the fire divers, and he comes in and certifies all of our captains and our deployment captains in chainsaw operation. And you know, these men and women are highly motivated, and they lose money to go help others, and it's just an amazing thing that they do. But this money allows us to expand that deployment zone. We've been blessed to not have any injuries since 2006. I think that's to the credit of the men and women that go on the team. We don't take volunteers. A lot of people have a hard time with that. After the Sherman, I'll tell you how important one disaster is. So just in Sherman, when we put the posts up about our deployment in Sherman, there was 256,000 interactions with our post. 256,000 interactions. And I can't tell you how many people, we want to volunteer, we want to be part of it. But because of the individuals that we have gone through training apprenticeship programs, the operating engineers that they're training, it's something that's very special and is only capable because of the trades and what they do every day for a living. Anything else? Okay, well, I just want to tell you how much of an honor it is to be here, to look at those trailers, to see what's taken place with all of the donations, all of the cooperation. The fact is, we can have the best team in the world full of motivated men and women with the laborers and the operators, but if the municipalities and the local community doesn't help, then we just don't succeed. And I think it's to your credit that our capabilities exist, because it does matter. And the only reason that we exist is because you care, and it transcends politics. What you said about your mother, I remember that vividly. I remember my daughter's home vividly. All of these things, every one of these disasters, I remember coming out of the basement. I had my grandkids run to the stairs in Sherman, and then 30 minutes later we're deploying. So it is special what these men and women do. And from the operating engineers and from the laborers, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. What an honor it is to see all of you, and thank you for caring.